Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back another video from Anime News, another cut content video for the solo leveling anime. I thought episode 3 was really cool. Again, I have not read any of the manhwa from this. I literally read like the first chapter, I think it was. And yeah, to see how this system works for the main character and everything is really interesting. It's really cool because it seems like his level in how they perceive the hunters levels just has not changed whatsoever. He scored like a 10, where they say that like normal E ranks are like 70, so like he was always just above human levels with his hunter level. But yeah, this system seems to be on its a whole different like thing, and I like that he has penalties for not doing the dailies and stuff. And yeah, really cool. Gives it a very much video game esque system, hence why the episode was called "It's Like a Game." But yeah, let's see what was left out or changed or even added, which is always an interesting like thing that happens sometimes in these episodes.
One of the most important things tied to Sung's development is the system he gained, which essentially governs all of it. The anime showed him integrate with it rather quickly, and even the manhwa has him accept it like it's nothing. It's in the novels, though, where things are a little bit slower, that Sung approaches this system with a bit more caution.
Right.
He takes his time to discover what it is he's dealing with, then elaborates on what certain aspects of it does for him.
I mean, if this happened to me, I would take it quite slow. I would question everything.
So, with episode 1 and 2 being these faithful adaptations of the prologue, it's here in episode 3 where Sung's journey really starts that there's a lot more cut content with both the system and him.
Oh, right.
It's a lot of details I recommend sticking around to the end for because it paints a clearer picture of who it is Sung wants to be.
Right.
Stuff I myself didn't even know when I was reading the manhwa. Episode 3. It's Like a Game.
It's like a game.
Covering chapters 11 to 13 from the manhwa and chapters 8 to 13 from the web novel.
Cool. I like how he I like how he does both.
I suppose a creative difference between this scene and the one from the novel
The animation was so good
is
on
the inclusion
this
of a
episode.
female voice dictating what it was the prompts were telling him.
Oh.
It was a voice in his head not unlike Rimuru, interacting with him as he chose whether or not to become a player. This voice claimed he'd completed a secret quest, then asked repeatedly if he'd accept the proposition being presented to him.
To be a
The
player.
thing about accepting anything from anyone, though, was that for Sung JinWoo, who grew up in poverty, he was well aware that there was likely some sort of price associated. If there was one lesson he'd learned in life, it was that nothing in it was free no matter how generous it was.
And what I liked and took away from the episode was that like he is always, regardless, tried really, really hard. To see that he was working hard before he became a hunter, and then even after the fact, at the lowest, I just was like, damn, dude deserves this that he's got. You know what I mean?
So, to him, he knew there'd be some sort of cost, and it was that cost he was considering as he contemplated the offer. For an offer in which the other choice was to simply die, though, there wasn't really much to think about once his imminent death was all but confirmed to him.
Yeah.
I mean, he could literally see the sword coming closer a millimeter at a time, and behind that were all the weapons from every other statue.
Oh, right.
So, as Sung thought to himself, why not? The system responded and took that as confirmation.
Cool.
It didn't need him to speak or even say yes, as all it required was an acceptance of any kind.
Cool.
That's when Sung would wake up in a room very familiar to him, and it's here the anime makes one major change with the manhwa. The person alongside Woo Jin-chul wasn't the character we now know as Kang, but instead a less prominent side character I don't think we see much of later.
Oh, right.
The reason I think they changed it to Kang is because, unlike the random partner Woo had with him, Kang becomes more prominent in one of the later arcs.
That's cool, and that again shows that they are definitely thinking forward with the story. They're definitely aiming for like this to go on for a while.
He's a more major character than the partner from the manhwa, and as such it would make sense to introduce him now so his appearance can seem a bit more relevant.
That's boss. I mean, what, in the first episode they had that flash forward, which is something that you guys say in the comment section. I was mentioning that is like a lot later down as well, so cool.
Now, something to know about Woo's Hunter Surveillance Department is that, as the team in charge of monitoring and keeping hunters in line, they were the strongest out of all the departments.
Oh.
I mean, if your job was to enforce the law to those who could abuse their powers to go above it, then it made sense that you'd have to be just as strong or even stronger than them.
That does make sense.
It's the very reason this department is the only one filled with high-level hunters.
To maintain balance. Someone goes rogue, you can't just have people that are just police officers go, please don't.
Woo's been an A-rank hunter for just over 6 years now, and it was
Right,
throughout
cool.
that time that he felt he'd seen pretty much everything. So when 6 different people recounted something he didn't even know was possible, his entire focus shifted into figuring out how to make sense of it.
Yeah, because he even said in it, it's like, this would be regarded like as just something nonchalant, but everyone said the exact same thing happened, and we saw the bodies. Like, whoa.
He had reached out to other guilds and even contacted foreign agencies, but no matter how hard he looked, not a single person had experienced anything remotely close to what Sung
Like it,
described.
wow.
It was an anomaly that required a bit more out-of-the-box type thinking. So, we saw hints of this during Woo's conversation in the anime, but the full extent of his theory went beyond that of just a reawakening. You see, since the undeniable proof was there that dangerous monsters existed within the gate, the fact none escaped or were even found anywhere inside left the association thinking the only possible answer was that Sung Jinwoo took care of them. Sure, this was definitely an absurd possibility, but the fact it was a possibility made it something that needed to be considered.
Yeah, they need to check
The
that out, yeah.
association wasn't going to rule out anything yet, especially since this was the only answer that made sense of everything. So, despite it being so incredibly unlikely that Sung Jinwoo did defeat these monsters, the possibility he did by reawakening needed to be checked out anyway. And it was the idea that Sung had become this all-new powerful hunter that left Woo excited to figure out whether he did or not.
Yes, that was funny when it was like, oh, what does it say? What does it say? Aw.
They didn't really show this in the anime, but there was a genuine excitement to Woo as he waited in anticipation of seeing what Sung had reawakened into. Reason being,
There was. He literally, like I just said, he literally was like, oh, what does it say? He was dead excited about it.
that after hearing the horror stories of the types of enemies Sung was up against, to defeat them all while also being unconscious was a level of power that could very well go even beyond the S rank. It was a thought that left Woo curious as to the type of power they would be dealing with. That's why in the case this did turn out to be something beyond the S rank, all information about the incident was made confidential.
Oof.
Only those
Oh.
involved would ever get to know about
Stamp it.
They had also placed Sung in a private room to keep things tight, then provided him with the best medical assistance since he was possibly a person of high value now. Woo may have been thinking a bit too ambitious himself though, since the thought of Sung being a nation-level hunter wasn't out of the realm of possibility either. To him, he felt
Nation-level.
anyone strong enough to deal with a monster capable of disintegrating people could very well be up there at that godly nation rank.
Jesus.
This was a league high above the S rank, where the hunters within are said to be stronger than even nukes.
Oh, so it still exists. It does exist. Wow. And oh, okay. Wow. It's Sid level. So there's a national. So there's S and then there's national. Wow. Okay.
They were a rare breed of individuals whose might could only be rivaled by each other.
Right, but then who governs them then and keeps them in check?
Global superpowers that swayed the very authority of entire nations. Less than 10 existed in the entire world, and with Sung possibly being the first from Korea, the very idea made Woo ecstatic.
Wow.
He was reveling in the thought that such a power could be born right here in his country. It was when Woo saw that the number was 10,
So it's still the same number, fair.
though, that his disappointment was immeasurable and day ruined. In fact, with the average E-rank hunter being between 70 to 100 magic power, the idea Sung had even qualified to be a hunter was, well, laughable.
That's mad. That is mad.
To Woo, it was a genuine miracle that he was even alive right now. Woo had even gone and checked Sung's historical records, and what he found there was even more disappointing than the test he just did. Reason being that in the 4 years Sung had been a hunter for, he had actually grown weaker since his initial power was ranked at 12. From then to now, he had gone
Oh, he's gone down to. Oh, God.
from 12 magic power to 10 magic power. Obviously, this was due to getting a fresh reset by the system, but since a margin
Right.
of 2 was within the range of error for the testing machine, Woo thought nothing of it, then left immediately. He neither told Sung what he saw nor answered his questions, but instead just thanked him for his time, then walked away.
I love how when they walked out, he went, oh, it's weird that they didn't ask me about these screens I'm seeing. That was really cool. That was a cool little, like, way of segueing into him acknowledging that and just I thought I was boss.
Leaving Sung both confused and disappointed. What he thought was going to be the answer to all his problems was instead just a naive dream and hopeless delusion. I mean, aside from feeling really rejuvenated, there was nothing about him that felt inherently different. He could tell just from that that he definitely couldn't have defeated those statues. Perhaps not even if he did reawaken. Sung would then think about 2 S-rank hunters and wonder if they could do it, but
Choi Jong-gin, the strongest S-rank among S-rank hunter. Go, cool.
with profiles like theirs being kept largely in secret, the only thing he knew about them was that they were regarded highly. There was nothing else to say for how they fought or how strong they were. Now, before I move on to the next scene with Jenna, to quickly highlight small details from the manhwa, Woo's expressions carried a bit of tiredness, likely to show just how much he's always working. The manometer housed a core costing 1 billion won, and the magic beast it came from was said to be A-ranked. Then, when Woo was recounting what happened to the other survivors, Sung had stopped him right before he got to Kim, which in turn led him to think back on how he abandoned him. This was probably the part Sung regretted the most, since if he was just a little bit stronger, things could have been different. He hated his inability to help out Song, and he hated even more the way Kim justified his selfish desire to leave. One last thing was a thought from Woo, which was an offhanded remark made immediately after Sung's testing. As soon as he saw his ranking was 10, he immediately accepted that trash would always be trash. It was a thought that highlighted the prejudice E-ranks get for being weak, which was more so shown in the anime when Sung was fighting in the dungeons for the
Yeah, they were like, you damn E-rankers.
first time. This wasn't the only anime original scene we were given though, since the large majority of the episode went to showcase other characters. There was Joo-hee and her almost visit with Sung, a seemingly unnecessary scene showing the nurses looking for
Okay, interesting. They're making an effort with this anime. They are making an effort.
Sung, Woo reporting
They don't need to add these things.
back to the chairman in the car, then Cha-ha-in getting her position as raid leader.
They're definitely planning ahead.
All these were original to the anime, and
Cool.
all for the most part slowed the pacing down a bit. Another exposition type original was the opening of the gate itself, which was actually quite interesting. It did well to highlight the way that society had adapted to them. I'm sure at first they were this extremely shocking phenomenon, but now as shown through these
Yeah,
scenes
it's
in
just
the
like,
anime,
oh, sorry, honey, it's another gate. We're going to be stuck in traffic for another few days.
they're nothing more than a minor inconvenience.
Yeah.
A standard part of life that you'll see in the news, and if they happen to be on your way to work, you'll just have to take a detour.
That was quite funny.
This was a cool way of showing how gates are now just a part of life, and it does well to emphasize that modern part of this fantasy.
That's cool. Yeah.
Now, switching back to Sung's time in the hospital, when his sister came in, she was actually crying a lot. Normally, she would come in and just start hitting and scolding him, but this time she was bawling her eyes out while doing so.
Oh.
It was a scene that made Sung look deeply into just how stupid he's been recently. After coming close to death so many times before, he couldn't understand why he was so willing to put himself through all of that. So, from now on, he knew the most important thing was to come back alive. For a bit more information on Jenna, she was one of the top students at her school now. Before, she was this girl who could never be separated from video games, but after her mother got sick, that's when she became a proper student, studying in hopes of one day becoming a doctor. This brings us now to Sung's initial exposure to the leveling system, which in the novels was surprisingly fleshed out a lot more. Not only were his thoughts a lot more human, but his approach to handling it was a lot more inquisitive. So, when he saw the prompts and was trying to make sense of them, his initial thoughts were that this was PTSD or something. He never believed that they were truly there and instead chalked it up to him being crazy. When he traversed the prompts and found the quest, the list of exercises he found inside made him certain that this really was an illusion.
It's mad. When I saw this, so I did training for half marathon I did last week, and I used the Strava app, and there's challenges you can take, and this just made me think of this, like every day trying to build up these things, but not these exactly, but you know what I mean, seeing the stats and that. But then when he has the full recovery option afterwards, I was like, God, that would be amazing to have. Like, you get like these daily like things, it's like run so many miles every week and that, and just be able to go full recovery. Right, let's do it again. Oh, that'd be amazing.
I mean, if it really was that easy to make oneself stronger, then a workout like that would be something everyone would be doing. So, what Sung thought this was to him was the product of his intense desire to become stronger. Perhaps his mind was relaying what his body wanted, and the result of such an urge was the screen in front of him, a hallucination fueled by passion. He would then try to ignore it by laying down, but the more time passed and the more he thought to himself, the more he began to feel that maybe he should try it. There was this ramping suspicion that maybe this was the real thing. So, as he got up to give the quest a try, Sung would stretch his arms and proceed to do 100 half-hearted elevated push-ups. They were definitely not the full push-ups the quests intended him to do, but push-ups nonetheless which he felt were satisfactory. Of course, nothing had changed when he finished, and it was that lack of proof which led him to ignore these delusions for good now.
Oh, so he thinks he's done the push-ups, but he hasn't really put the effort in to accumulate the actual push-ups. Wow. That's kind of like me just jumping on the spot hoping that my app recognizes miles.
Now, it's when we get to the penalty quest in the alternate dimension that a few peculiar things were worth noting about it. The first was the lack of wind in what was clearly an outdoors environment, then the next was the empty sky with literally nothing in it. The sky was black with no sun, moon, or even stars, yet despite zero visible light source whatsoever, Sung could still see clearly as if there was light around him. It was a weird phenomenon that made wherever this was even more strange. The centipedes were described to be taller than a 5-story building, and all in all there were about 7 chasing him.
Damn. They reminded me of when you saw the face monsters from StarCraft near the Zerg. Can't remember they had the thing on the heads and the spiky hands. Not the Zerglings, but the ones higher than that. Anyway, God, StarCraft was amazing. I have my StarCraft hat on right now, don't I? Yeah.
By the time it was over, the nurse and doctor who had come in to help had revealed more about Sung's particular circumstance. Aside from Sung being a person who the Hunter Association requested special care for, the hospital he was sent to was one specifically dedicated to hunters. It was a place in which many hunters met their end. A fate the nurse was far too familiar with, and one she could only hope the same wouldn't be said for Sung.
Bless.
Luckily, he was just on the floor covered in sand, but there was some fresh
Oh, so the sand came with him. That is interesting. Did they not question that?
blood right where his hands were. It was the product of a cut he'd received shortly before, but one that was gone right as the nurse had checked him.
Ah.
Fast forward to after Sung's first completion of his dailies, and a set of active and passive
A 10k a day is doable. Is doable. It's the rest I just couldn't be bothered with.
skills could be seen available to him. There was a blank passive at a max level unknown to us, the Unyielding Spirit passive decreasing all damage received when below 30%, then the Sprint active increasing movement speed at a cost of 1 mana per minute. The unknown passive was something there from the very beginning, but the other two were gained while running away from the centipedes.
Right.
So, in this new system that's operated just like a video game, it seems skills are gained by doing repetitive actions meeting a certain criteria.
Like grinding that game.
It's not stated in the anime just how invaluable such an ability is, but to put into context why it is, skills can't ever be gained by normal hunters. Whatever skills they receive upon their awakening are the skills they're stuck with unless they have a reawakening.
And this reawakening thing, it'd be interesting to see how many people have reawakened. Because he knows that reawakening's a thing.
The only way a hunter could ever learn a new skill without one is through the use of runestones found only by the slaying of magical beasts.
Oh, so you can...
So, on the rare occasions when an A or S rank monster is killed, a runestone will sometimes drop, which could then be used to imbue a hunter with a new skill.
Right.
The runestones often vary in the skills they imbue, but depending on whether it's a good or bad one, they could be sold at auction for either hundreds of thousands or millions. In fact, the last runestone Sung could remember being sold was a rare healing one that taught the ability to restore any injury.
Wow.
Such a skill had caught the eye of an anonymous 4 and S rank hunter, and it was them who had bought it for their entire wallet of 52 million. So, if such a skill could be worth that much, the value of all these lesser ones was to him unfathomable.
Yeah.
Sure, Sprint and Unyielding Spirit may not be worth billions, but they were definitely useful even with their high mana costs.
Full recovery. Give me full recovery.
Now, to add a bit more justification to his 100% strength build, intelligence and perception were skills that just didn't seem useful to him. Since he knew he was a fighter-type hunter, to him what he needed most was strength, agility, and vitality. Mostly strength, since that's what he thought would make things easiest. Sung would then try and lift his bed to see if it made a difference, but with no memory on what it weighed before, he had no way to distinguish whether the bed was just light or he had gotten stronger.
Interesting, cool.
He would then add 3 more points from the reward he got from the penalty quest, and it was this time that the bed felt significantly lighter. It was a result of being 60% stronger than how he was 5 minutes ago. So, Sung was ecstatic at the fact the system was real and decided to vent this excitement by lifting all the other furniture in the room. He was blown away by the thought of being able to become stronger every day. Even if his level wasn't something he could raise, just being able to improve his stats was enough for him. It was a thought he'd dreamt about for years now turned to reality. One he knew everyone was always laughing at him for, yet one that was now possible despite all that adversity. To him, this was an opportunity he wasn't going to squander. Of course, the phenomenon still could have been a second awakening, so in order to find out whether it really was or not, Sung went to the internet to do some research. He would use the computer right there in his special VIP hospital suite, then scour the internet for pretty much anything. Whether it be sites accessible only to hunters or information he needed to pay for, Sung gathered all he could on the topic of reawakening. Unfortunately, none matched up with what he was going through, so the only conclusion he could make was that this was different. He had even posted on the Hunter forum to see if anyone knew anything, but...
Oh, surely someone's going to see that and be like, whoa, I'm suddenly able to see floating screens like a video game. Huh.
The only responses he got were the ones calling him crazy.
Right.
So, with all that research coming up with nothing, Sung truly believed himself to be something special now. For all he knew, he was the only hunter with this ability. A unique case with a unique system, the limits of which he intended to explore with zero hesitation. The next scene was the actual opening of the pen and bandages Sung had mentioned in the anime, which for the most part wouldn't be that important if not for the two valuable things he had learned from it. The first was that the information prompt only popped up to items held in inventory, and the second was the fact that he had an inventory. It was a pocket space in which everything he earned could be stored inside.
That's so cool, man. I'd like to be like, right, I don't know where to put my Funko Pops right now, so you just stay there until I decide.
He had expected such a thing to be empty, but to his surprise, Kim's sword was right there waiting for him. This $2,000 sword he had desperately picked up back in the temple was now his to use whenever he wanted.
Awesome.
There was a chance Kim would ask for it back if he ever saw Sung use it, but to Sung, this and his new powers were all things he earned. They were hard-fought rewards he had zero intent on ever giving back. In fact, if anything, the encounter in the temple had given him even more than that. It had reinforced the notion that he needed to become strong, then made it clear that there was no merit in being needlessly kind. Since his last kindness was rewarded with betrayal, Sung vowed to never put his life in danger for anyone again. He would never risk himself under the false precept of the greater good, and above all, put his life first. So, if we were to sum up the two things Sung committed to here, the first would be his commitment to becoming stronger, and the second a desire to become cold. I know that does sound a little bit edgy, but Sung was a man who didn't forget his lessons. He was burned before, so now he just wanted to prevent that. Now, the novel does carry on with more stuff at the hospital, but since I think that's going to be shown somewhere in the next episode, I'll leave things here and cover the Instance Dungeon next week. This week actually had quite a bit of cut content, so I hope you enjoyed hearing it as much as I enjoyed reading it.
Yeah, it was possible.
It was interesting to see the slower pace at which Sung approached his new system, and I think that last bit really sets the foundation for his character. So, if you liked what you saw and want to see more, then be sure to subscribe and let me know down in the comments. But anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do. So, until next time.
Ciao. Class. Cool. Very interesting. I'm very intrigued by this story, man. I'm very intrigued by this. Yeah, so cool. I liked that third episode. I thought it was really good. I thought it was really interesting. And yeah, like you said, if there's stuff cut out at the hospital, I reckon they might bring that in the next one. Next week we will check out episode 4's cut content. But until then, thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video I upload, links in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is all I ask, but I greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for that, and thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe, leave comments below. Let me know what I should watch in future videos. See you guys, next time.